From holiday blues to how the church is responding to America's mental health crisis. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder. As we transition from Thanksgiving to Christmas, we all, of course, know the song. It's the most wonderful time of the year. But that is not how everyone feels. While it's not often talked about, depression is a common struggle during a season which should be filled with joy. So how do you treat the holiday blues? The CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson has the story.
Like millions of Americans, Karen McGrath dreads the holidays.
Leading up to it, you just think it's going to be too painful. You can't handle it.
Her son Chandon died 3 years ago in a diving accident, and both of her parents died a short time after that. Then came a divorce, which means her kids will spend much of the holidays with their dad.
There's a hole, there's an emptiness, there's a longing that you want to be with them instead of being left here.
And it's not just the absence of family that contributes to the holiday blues.
These holiday times, a lot of times, are tense, and there's a lot of angst regarding family members. If your family has been problematic all year long, most likely when they show up at your house, things are going to be problematic.
In addition to relationship problems, another source of sadness during the holidays is the belief that happiness is based on how much money we spend. And this year, with double-digit unemployment, there may be lots of folks who are feeling inadequate. Here are some ways to help beat the holiday blues. Plan ahead. Make a budget for gifts, travel, food, and donations. Schedule tasks like holiday baking and shopping so they're less stressful. Reach out, because focusing on someone else tends to lift your spirit and theirs. Churches, hospitals, and nursing homes all need volunteers this time of year. And bury the hatchet.
Even though that person is difficult and maybe even mean at times, you be the person of Christ to that person. You exercise grace, you exercise forgiveness, you give them the benefit of the doubt, and you do what Jesus said. You bless those who curse you, you love your enemies, you act like Jesus to that person, and you would be surprised at how far that can go in the long run.
Arrange get-togethers well in advance so you won't be caught alone. Isolation can lead to depression. If you can't be around loved ones, find new ways to celebrate together, such as sharing pictures, emails, or videos. And don't forget to exercise. People who think exercise only benefits the body are really only seeing half the picture. The truth is, exercise is a powerful mood booster, a natural way to feel happy. That's because during exercise, the body releases endorphins, neurotransmitters that have euphoric and pain-relieving properties similar to morphine.
If there's a day I'm having a bad day, I'm stressed out, I'm tired, sometimes working out reverses all of that. So I come into the gym, I forget about my problems, I concentrate on what I'm actually doing physically, and it helps me mentally.
Unfortunately, exercise is one of the first things skipped during the holidays. Some gyms offer incentives to keep members moving during the holidays. The YMCA is giving shirts to each member who works out at least 3 times a week. And the social interaction is an added bonus.
When somebody knows your name, it just feels good. It feels good to see somebody that you know, and with the small groups and small communities that we form here, people really have that sense of community.
Eat healthy, because overindulgence leads to feelings of guilt. Get plenty of rest so you're strong enough to meet the emotional demands while you're awake, and make time to pray daily.
Talking to God, slowing yourself down, allowing for quiet time, giving your mind a chance to rest in the Lord and really focus on who God is and what He says about you.
I mean, how else could I do it if I didn't have God? There's no way. I'd be in a mental hospital.
So by taking spiritual and practical steps, you can enjoy good emotional health throughout the holidays. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
An anxiety epidemic in America. Is the church failing to deal with this major issue? That story next. Welcome back. It's a staggering statistic. 1 in 5 adults struggles with mental illness each year. And not even the church is immune. Many Christians also face that same struggle. Still, there's a stigma around seeking counseling. That's particularly true in churches. Heather Sells introduces us to a pastor and his congregation who are fighting for hope in the face of despair.
As a college senior, Dakari Middlebrooks got a dreadful call. His best friend had been murdered. This led to 3 years of violent nightmares when finally a seminary professor suggested therapy. Middlebrooks rejected it flat out.
I said, I appreciate your suggestion, but black people don't go to counseling. We just pray about it.
The government estimates that each year, 48 million struggle with anxiety disorders and millions with challenges like major depression, post-traumatic stress, and bipolar disorder. For the young, mental illness can turn deadly. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34. Fortunately, Middlebrooks did make his way to a therapist.
I went to counseling and I enjoyed it. It was the greatest 2.5 years of my life.
He began attending a church with a pastor who openly talked about his struggle after his first wife died.
Went through an incredible loss in my life and found myself in a place of depression and didn't realize what it was. I knew I was in a dark place.
Bishop Walker also eventually sought out counseling, and as he healed, he realized his own church needed a wake-up call.
I think that there is in the African-American community this whole idea that, this phobia, this stigma, if you get counseling, you're crazy.
Research shows that people who are struggling with their mental health often turn first to their church. That's an enormous opportunity.
Now remarried, Bishop Walker and his wife, Dr. Stephanie Walker, a pediatrician, are bringing mental health to the forefront. They started Church Fit at Mount Zion, offering classes and programs on total physical and mental health. This includes a push from the pulpit in an effort to fight the stigma.
We now make it a part of our everyday conversation as opposed to something that's whispered or something that's talked about only in the corner. It's a part of the everyday conversation. So do you need help? How are you feeling today? And asking 3 questions beyond that. Because what is the common answer? Well, I'm fine. Well, really? So tell me more.
Psychologist Vanessa Bell attends Mount Zion and says the new direction has been huge.
I think that's what he did, in essence, normalized it from the pulpit that what you're experiencing is real. We can pray about it, but there are also resources available.
Dr. Walker has also developed a referral system so church members can easily find a counselor, psychiatrist, or support group.
As a church, we don't have to recreate the wheel. The resources are out there. We have the people, they have the resources, we serve as connectors.
And Mount Zion makes sure its people know how to help, ask the right questions, and not let go when someone is hurting.
It's not an option to leave you. It's not an option to hang up the phone. It's not an option to tell you we can't help you. Where do I need to send you next? And they're trained to figure out immediately in that moment what are the next steps in terms of getting this person help and getting them connected.
For Middlebrooks, he's gone from shame to healing to transparency. He writes about his journey in the new book, The Depressed Millennial, and he says he's seen a change in his church as well.
I think the church is now aware that there has to be a space, and I think that's what we've been able to do here at Mount Zion is carve out a space for dialogue. A lot of people were afraid to share that I'm broken.
Middlebrooks hopes more churches will adopt this model as they become aware of mental health needs in their congregations and communities. Reporting in Nashville, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Coming up, from suicidal to superhero, actor Zachary Levi talks about his childhood trauma, his battle with depression, and the role of a lifetime when Faith Nation returns. Zachary Levi is well known for his roles in Shazam, American Underdog, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Now he's using his fame as a platform to tell his personal story and to shed light on the issue of mental health. The actor sat down with Ephraim Graham to talk about his childhood, trauma, his healing, and how it all led to the role of a lifetime.
Shazam? from superhero.
I don't know where we go from here. I don't know what comes next, but this, we did this.
To Super Bowl champ.
Yeah, man, I know who you are. I'm Kurt.
Zachary Levi lands larger-than-life acting roles quite regularly.
How would you describe the childhood or the life of Zachary Levi Pugh?
How much time you got? I mean, I think like most kids, in the moment, when I was a kid, it was normal. There wasn't anything, you know, particularly traumatic or that I could point to and say like, oh, I'm living a traumatized life. You don't realize that until far later in life, hopefully. A lot of people don't ever realize that. Looking back on it, I can assure you an incredibly traumatizing childhood. There was just lots and lots of unhealthy, toxic behavior that was going on. Again, I could tell you that there were things that were making me cry on a regular basis or things that I was afraid of on a regular basis, but I didn't necessarily see those as being anything other than, well, I guess this is normal. I guess this is what other kids probably deal with as well, you know? So that would be, you know, a snapshot into my life, I suppose.
What do you think childhood for you did to your adulthood?
Young Zach was this, I don't know, little boy kind of just lost in the sea of estrogen between my sisters, my mom, my aunts, my grandma. But fortunately, and this is the grace of God, not just the grace of God, but the plans of God, I figured out very early on in life, probably around 4, was when I was first truly cognizant of the idea that I could make someone laugh intentionally. Before that, every kid makes people laugh accidentally. You don't know why. Around 4, I think I was finally smart enough to go, oh, I can do this thing. I can do X or Y, and that will make somebody laugh. And I also knew, because I think at 4, you're emotionally intelligent enough to know that a laughing, smiling person feels good. And I never, ever wanted to stop doing that. I was immediately called to, addicted to, not realizing also that because I was lost in this world and trying to find identity and worth and value and all that jazz, I was both, fulfilling a calling, I think, in my life, but also figuring out very quickly how to run away from metabolizing my pain, figuring out how to be the clown, be the guy, bring the happy, bring the joy.
You don't have a tape in here, but it's digital.
Being a quick study earned Levi a starring role early and an escape from real life. Abuse, a mom with mental struggles, and an absent father.
I was running from pain my whole life. I was running from pain. I'm grateful that I was able to find what I loved to do and what I was good at doing at such a young age, because I think a lot of people don't. Even though that was also something that was, I think, insulating me from doing a lot of the work that I needed to do that eventually led me to having a massive breakdown later on in life.
He shares his story with us and even more in his memoir, Radical Love, Learning to Accept Yourself and Others.
You talk about going from suicidal to superhero and then suicidal again. Take me back to the rock bottom moment. What happened?
I felt like I was failing, ultimately. Like most of my life, I've felt like a failure, even though from the outside it looks like, oh, I'm very much succeeding. But I'm not succeeding on the level that I feel like I'm supposed to or that I was called to.
She's a little artsy.
With music, Broadway, the big and small screens on his resume, he left Hollywood.
With a head full of steam and dreams, I moved out to Austin, and I didn't know anyone out there. And all of a sudden, after 15 years of living in Los Angeles and having community and support structure and all of those things, I was now, Geronimo, let's go. Oh, wait a minute, now I'm alone. Oh, wait a minute, this isn't happening the way that I felt like God was calling me out here to do this, and why aren't the doors opening? Oh my gosh, I have blown up my life. I have now entirely failed my life. There is no coming back from this failure. I would say if suicide is climbing a 10-rung ladder, I was at rung 9. And thankfully, I have family and friends that surrounded me, supported me, were there for me, and just enough for me to get up and go to therapy, this life-saving therapy. But it was a perfect storm. But it was 37 years of lots and lots and lots and lots of trauma, unhealed trauma. A real testament of how I think, God works and what we ought to prioritize. I was not prioritizing the most important thing, which was to actually invest in myself and to care for myself and love myself, because I didn't understand that. So to go away and do this therapy, finally, and really figure out, oh my gosh, I haven't loved myself my entire life. I've never even understood what that meant. And also, oh, this feeling that I feel inside, that I felt my whole life, that's anxiety? Oh, I'm glad I finally know what anxiety is.
Therapy began his healing, a rebirth of his faith, and the role of a lifetime.
Say my name. Shazam literally happened while I was still like finishing up my therapy, but only, you know, because God was like, good, now you've done the thing. Now I can give you the blessing. You would have self-destructed had I given you this blessing before you did the work. And that's the work.
How does it feel sitting here now knowing, I think at one point I'm reading that you felt you lost God and he was gone?
Oh man, and I was driving around in Austin recently, driving up this road that was kind of near the house that I was staying in when I was having this breakdown in this cilantro restaurant where I was having this breakdown, and I was driving by it and it just all flooded back. I was like, oh wow. Like I remember being right here and thinking there is no hope and there's no way I'm moving beyond this. There's no way I'm going to live beyond this month. And I was very much alive and I was very much living my dreams as I was now driving by the same road. And I was so grateful. Oh man, so grateful that I didn't do something so stupid and so drastic, and that I get to sit here and talk about this book that hopefully, if nothing else, helps at least one person walk through the flames that I was able to get through.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News, Washington, D.C.
Become 30% happier in 30 days. How a leading psychiatrist says you can do just that after this. A 30% happier in just 30 days. Once again, here's CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson.
The COVID-19 pandemic sent mental health crises through the roof. Adult depression tripled, while that plus anxiety disorders among children more than doubled.
Well, Americans are the unhappiest they have been since the Great Depression.
Psychiatrist Daniel Amen says it doesn't have to be that way.
With the right strategies, you can learn to be happier in a short period of time.
After studying more than 200,000 brain scans, he discovered neuroscience techniques that can lead to increased happiness. He then tested them on his patients and found an average 32% improvement after 1 month.
I was pretty excited about it. And Lori, what most people don't know is happiness is a moral obligation. God put us on the earth to be happier. That if you ask someone who is raised by an unhappy parent or married to an unhappy spouse, whether or not happiness was a moral obligation, I can assure you they would say yes.
In his book, You Happier, Dr. Amen prescribes different strategies that could affect 16 personality types.
They're balanced people. Almost anything will make them happy. Spontaneous people who need novelty. Persistent people who need routine and hate surprises. They're sensitive people, and they got hurt the worst in the pandemic because they need other people and they need connection. And then there are cautious people who need to feel safe.
Dr. Amen says improving happiness involves boosting brain health, which means limiting junk food.
So the foods that people have been reaching for to feel better during the pandemic, of course, and before, can actually make your mood worse in the long run?
Right. We reach for things that help us feel better now, but not later.
Same goes for alcohol.
I'm just not a fan. People who drink every day have smaller brains.
Dr. Amen says supplements can also help. While making recommendations based on personality type, he adds just about everyone benefits from heavy hitters like a multivitamin, probiotic, vitamin D, and fish oil.
My favorite for happiness is saffron. It has been shown in 24 randomized controlled trials to be equally effective as antidepressants. And I'm like, wow.
In addition to improving the health of our brain, another key to happiness is learning to control our thoughts.
Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down what you're thinking and then challenge it. You don't have to believe everything you think.
Replace negative thoughts with positive ones.
Philippians 4:8. Think on whatever is true, right, lovely, worthy of praise. Let your mind dwell on these things, focusing on what you're grateful for, starting every day with today is going to be a great day, pushing your brain to what's right, not just what's wrong. Notice what you like about other people more than what you don't.
Dr. Amen recommends limiting time online, pointing to research showing social media increases suicide risk in teenage girls, which he believes could be just the tip of the iceberg.
I think it's very important for parents to supervise the feeds that go into their children's brains, and we should supervise them for ourselves.
In addition to social media, Dr. Amen says many people would likely be happier if they cut back on their consumption of the news. So while genetics and circumstances can play a role in our overall happiness, it appears our choices and habits play even bigger ones. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And that's going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.